I'll never forget the roar that shattered the quiet dawn. It wasn't my alarm buzzing me awake, it was the guttural growl of heavy machinery tearing into my mom's house, the place that had stood strong through storms, holidays, and heartbreaks for over half a century. By the time I bolted outside in my jeans and sneakers, the front wall was already caving in, dust billowing like smoke from a battlefield. My mom, Margaret Hayes, stood there on the dewy grass in her robe, gripping a faded quilt her late husband had made, her face pale as she watched decades of life get crushed under steel tracks. The HOA president, Barbara Klein, stood off to the side with her arms folded, a smug grin plastered on her face as she yelled to the crew, "Push through, got a community center expansion to finish." What she didn't know, what none of them could have guessed, was that in less than a day, she'd be facing me in court, scrambling to explain how her petty kingdom dared to bulldoze an innocent widow's home. This isn't just a tale of a house turned to rubble. It's about standing up to bullies, exposing corruption, and delivering the kind of payback that hits harder than any machine. Our neighborhood, Willowbrook Estates, used to be the picture of suburban bliss, a cozy grid of split-level homes, maple-lined streets, and backyard barbecues in the heart of suburban Ohio. Kids rode bikes until dusk, and folks swapped recipes over fences. Mom's house sat at the end of Oak Ridge Drive, a modest ranch style with a wraparound porch where she'd sip iced tea and wave to passersby. The paint was a soft blue, the shutters straight, and her flower beds burst with tulips every spring. It wasn't fancy, but it had soul, the kind built from scraped knees, family dinners, and quiet evenings with Dad before he passed from cancer 10 years back. Then came the HOA, Willowbrook's self-proclaimed guardians of standards and harmony. They started harmless enough, enforcing trash pickup times, organizing block parties. But under Barbara Clinney, a no-nonsense realtor with a power suit and a clipboard like a badge of honor, they morphed into a gang of busybodies. Her crew included Gerald, the accountant-turned-treasurer who crunched numbers like they were enemies; Carla, head of the design committee, who wielded a tape measure like a weapon; and Sheila, the newsletter queen who bombarded inboxes with friendly reminders that felt like veiled threats. Their big scheme was Horizon 2040, a glossy pamphlet promising upgraded amenities, a bigger clubhouse, walking trails, and get TSAN expanded parking lot for event overflow. The blueprint showed sleek blacktop swallowing 3 older lots, including Mom's, marked with a sterile X. At first, it was all smiles, a polite letter about neighborhood evolution, a survey asking how thrilled we'd be for more spaces. Mom chuckled it off while baking her famous apple pie. "They'll pivot to a new playground by winter," she said, her voice steady from years as a schoolteacher. But these folks didn't do subtle. The nitpicking kicked in like clockwork. A notice for her fence being off-shade from the approved baguette had weathered to a warm tan. Then her lawn gnome, a cheerful little guy with a watering can, got flagged as non-conforming decor. Carla showed up with her tape measure, declaring it exceeded height limits by ½ an inch. Fines piled up, $50 here, $100 there, with 14-day deadlines that screamed urgency. It was harassment wrapped in legalese designed to wear you down. I attended their next meeting in the clubhouse, a stuffy room smelling of stale donuts and fresh printer ink. Barbara ran it like a courtroom, banging a gavel for order. When I spoke up, "My mom's 82. She's lived here forever. Can't we find a compromise?" she cut me off with a tight smile. "Uniformity protects equity, Daniel. Exceptions breed chaos." Gerald chimed in about liability risks, and Carla waved her tape measure like evidence. A neighbor, old Mr. Jenkins, piped up about his wheelchair ramp getting fined for visual disruption. The room tensed, but Barbara dismissed it. "We accommodate within parameters." Afterward, I overheard them plotting, "Clear those edge properties and we'll squeeze in 4 extra spots." It wasn't about community, it was about control. Signs popped up nearby. "Cash for homes quick close." A flyer on Mom's doorstep touted a relocation incentive like it was a vacation upgrade. She held it at arm's length. "They think age means weakness," she muttered, her eyes flashing with that old teacher fire. I tried diplomacy, coffee at Barbara's, chatting over mugs emblazoned with live, love, lawn care. Asked why Mom's spot. "Central access, fire safety compliance," she replied, but her eyes darted when I mentioned city permits. Turns out, her husband's paving company was the contractor classic insider deal. The pressure ramped up. Citations for a birdhouse attracting pests, porch lights too warm-toned, even her recycling bin for a slightly ajar lid. Sheila emailed at midnight demanding acknowledgments. Neighbors confided similar woes. A dad fined for his kid's swing set, a widow for her door wreath. It wasn't rules, it was a siege. One last shot, a formal letter citing elder protections and requesting mediation. Denied flat out, with a final improvement notice attached, demo date circled, starting in 2 weeks. Authorized pursuant, it read. Authorized by whom? Not the city. I checked their database. It was self-approved nonsense. That night, walking Mom's yard under the stars, she polished her door knocker out of habit. "What now?" she asked. "We document, we wait, then we strike smart," I said, not yet revealing my ace. I wasn't just her son. I was Judge Daniel Hayes, keeping a low profile in the burbs. The violations snowballed, cameras snapping at odd hours. Carla lurked, photographing fence fade. Mom's hands shook over her coffee. "They act like I'm a blight." Mr. Jenkins whispered warnings. "They wore me down till I sold." At an inspection, Barbara prowled with Gerald. "I saw," she sneered. Mom stood firm. "My husband built this fence. You can't erase us with forms." Barbara's retort. "We'll see." A thick envelope arrived. Property reallocation, eviction in fancy terms, demo scheduled. I raced to City Hall. Permits were bogus, signatures forged, tied to Barbara's hubby. Mom dug up buried keepsakes in the yard, jars of Dad's coins. "If they bury me, save these." My blood boiled. They're digging their grave. Demo day dawned with engines rumbling. Trucks invaded Oak Ridge, dozers, loaders, Barbara directing like a general. I yelled stop, but she waved fakes. The blade ripped tulips. Mom clutched her quilt, sobbing. Neighbors gawked, some filmed, some cheered the progress. I yanked Mom back as the porch splintered. Inside, I grabbed medals, photos, and heirlooms amid shaking walls. By noon, it was rubble. Mom whispered, "Where do I sleep?" I vowed, "Safe, and tomorrow they pay." Salvaging scraps. I see that at Barbara's strut, progress has costs. But I stayed. Cool me, Courtroom hammer would crush harder. Evidence mounted. Fakes, kickbacks, emails proving intent. I filed an injunction overnight. Mom crashed at a neighbor's. I prepped in my chambers. Morning court. Barbara's crew sauntered in, expecting a win. Then they saw me on the bench. Barbara froze. Gerald dropped his case. Court in session. I boomed. Charges: fraud, demo without due process, abuse. Witnesses poured out. Jenkins on his ramp, a dad on swings. Foreman admitting felt wrong. Emails flashed. Clear them if they resist. Bank trails showed payoffs. Barbara blustered. For values. I thundered. Not at soul's expense. The gallery roared as truths unfolded. Judgment: guilty on all counts. $400,000 fine to the victim's fund. Barbara's firm banned for 15 years. Board dissolved. Barbara and Gerald were cuffed for prosecution. Carla and Sheila were on probation, community service. Cheers erupted. Mom's eyes shone with pride. Rebuild funds flooded in GoFundMe grants. Neighbors rebuilt. Lumber, paint, a new porch swing. Move-in day was a block party, hot dogs, and music. Mom cut the ribbon, home again. Willowbrook breathed free, laughter echoing without fear. Barbara's headlines screamed scandal. Her crew faded. As dusk fell on the porch, Mom said, "Endings birth beginnings." Justice didn't just punish, it healed. What do you think about this story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you side with the HOA's progress or the fight against overreach? Let me know your stance and why.